Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America and the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Great to have you with us on the program today. Jay Niblick is our guest. He's the founder and CEO of Intermetrics Incorporated, a consulting firm, offices on 5 continents, considered an expert in entrepreneurial business, consulting, leadership, business coaching, sales, and marketing. Jay has been a consultant, keynote speaker in 23 countries, coached thousands of independent consultants, and collectively, they have consulted 10,000 corporations and over 1 million employees. Jay also sits on the board of directors of the Robert Hartman Institute, a think tank at the University of Tennessee dedicated to the study of decision-making, and his new book we're talking about on the program today, The Profitable Consultant, Starting, Growing, and Selling Your Expertise. Jay Niblick, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. The honor's all mine.
Well, the book is excellent. It's very easy to read, a lot of practical advice. We'll talk about a lot of the questions you pose as you're going through the book, and you're very honest in telling people what it takes to become a profitable consultant. And as I mentioned in the beginning, that independent consultancy, that's like the fastest growing job in the job market right now, and you don't see it really slowing down any.
I don't really. I mean, it's normal that when economies go down or are in recession, people become self-employed. But now the self-employment is really around intellectual work, what you have up here and your knowledge. So I don't see that changing. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of people agree we're headed towards kind of a free agent society in many regards.
Yeah, you say that we're basically changing from world of laborers to a world of thinkers. And it really looks like we're going dramatically in that area.
Yeah, I mean, independent consulting, which covers a broad range. Obviously, you've got management consultants, coaches, but, IT workers, web designers, PR people, editors. I mean, all kinds of people that are getting paid for what they do are starting that business on their own. They've lost their job or they've decided, I don't like my boss anymore. I'll just start my own business. And so it's 84% growth is what the Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor and Statistics is showing and is predicted. So, I mean, that's not going to slow down anytime soon, for sure.
No, fastest growing areas of jobs out there, and second isn't even close. So it obviously is growing. A lot of people focusing on this. The book is The Profitable Consultant. Jay Niblick, our guest on the program. TheProfitableConsultant.com is the website. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on as well. A lot of great information in there. And let's just pretty much start with the basics. You say that people really have to ask themselves a question in the very beginning, is this really right for me? And let's talk about that. Who actually makes a good consultant? What type of qualities do they need?
A lot of people mistakenly assume when they approach me and they talk to me, they go, what are the traits to a great consultant? What things do I have to have in order to be a great consultant? And because we see this free agent society or economy, there's no one set format or trait or more or a list of them that you really have to have, but it's what you're great at. You're already a great public relations person, graphic designer, leader, salesperson, so on and so forth. That's the key. That's the core. And then what you really have to understand is the best consultants don't follow a template. They figure out what is it I'm great at and how do I build a business around that. The example I'll give is the guy who started a consulting practice and he went to a conference and he sat next to a guy that he said, how are you doing? He said, I'm selling strategic planning. And it's just selling like hotcakes. It's on fire. I'm making tons of money. So this guy came back and formulated a plan to start adding strategic planning to his consulting. It's not something he was ever great at. He didn't have a lot of experience with it as a business person. And it failed miserably. So the mistake was trying to be somebody else. You can be mediocre, but you can only be a great you. And that's really the key. I think when somebody says, what does it take to become a great consultant? Self-awareness. Understand what are your talents, what are you really great at, and then build that practice where your success depends on you doing more of that, not going out and learning how to do what other consultants or consulting firms offer.
And if you think this is a big jump and you'd like to maybe take it nice and slow and easy, feel your way through this, the Profitable Consultant lists 4 different kinds of practices. So actually you could start off on a sort of a part-time basis to see if this is really something you're good at.
I'd say 80% probably do, maybe even higher than that. They're usually 10, 15, 20-year managers and leaders who have lots of experience. They're executives. So that's the talent base that they've developed over their career that they're bringing out to the market. And easily 80% start slow as a hobby practice, we call it. Some stay that way. For some, it's a second career. They have retired, actually, from 25 or 30 years with a company, and they never want to do more than work 3 or 4 days a week. But yeah, and I advise it that way. Before you jump and let go of the vine, get out there and feel your way around. If it's not going to conflict with your current work, consulting, because of the way it's structured and the lack of overhead and the freedom, you should be able to do that. And just try to get one client and see how you like it.
You go through in the book trends as well as risk, and you talk to people that try this, and so often they're like, wow, isn't even close to what I expected it to be. And the one thing you talk about in there, and you see this coming up, is the isolation part of it. If you're used to going to work and working with a group of people and being part of a team, and you've got somebody you can interact with through the day, as a consultant, that really changes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Easily 95% of the independent consultants work completely by themselves. The other 5% have a partner, but usually no more than one. So I think they underestimate, I'm going to be working with corporations. I'll be out there meeting with people all day long, every day. Now, only once you get a really well-established practice will you be able to fill your day face-to-face meeting with other people. And for certain personality types, the outgoing, gregarious, the socializing kinds, they don't realize that for months they'll spend a lot of time in their office, in their living room, or a small office outside, all by themselves. And it does detract from their enjoyment of the job. They might be very successful at it, but the engagement and the passion can suffer if they're that type.
And if you're used to bouncing ideas off of other people, you've got to get used to bouncing ideas off your wife, your kids, your animals, that type of thing, because it's you basically sitting there trying to develop things on your own, for the most part.
Yeah, one of the first things we recommend to any consultant is to get a coach. You don't have to hire a coach per se. There's a lot out there, but get a partner, get a trusted advisor, your sounding board. For the majority, you nailed it. That's probably a spouse or another friend that they used to work with or some other executive. But you got to have that. It helps with the socializing aspect, but it just helps to, get an objective third-party view of, am I insane? Does this sound like it makes sense or not?
The program is This Week in America. Our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Our guest on the program is Jay Niblick, author of The Profitable Consultant, Starting, Growing, and Selling Your Expertise. I want to talk about your expertise. You started back in 1998. You and a partner started your company at that time. And it's grown, and you're working with a number of people, and we keep reading that, you start up businesses, really not that many survive after 5 years. Yours are not only surviving after 5 years, the people you're working with, they're flourishing after 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think we could probably attest to that same kind of success rate, 15 years ago when we started. We've been around 15 plus years, and so about 95% of the small businesses, and it's no different with consultants. Like any startup business, about 95% fail to survive 10 years. 63% are gone in the first 5 years. So what we've seen is the reason that most of the consultants that we see in our networks, it's about 1,750 that have gone through, I guess, so far that are out there in the world. The reason there's about 95 to 97% success rate there is because they're able to learn from the rest of the network. That isolation we just talked about, they don't have it. They're in a network, and that's why it's important wherever you are, get in a network, get into a networking group, get with a coach, get with more than you can, and make sure that you have that support system. And outside of that aspect, it's best practices. Why would you try to reinvent the wheel yourself? Somebody who's been in practice or doing their own business for 5 years, that's probably the mark. Find somebody who isn't just new like you, but has made the hard decisions and learned from making all the mistakes. And so this network, I think the reason why ours do it anyway, short story, is because they've got such a huge network of other consultants to go to, and a process that we create to make sure that we share that information with everybody. So not unlike a franchise, really.
In the book, The Profitable Consultant, you really lay things out. And before we get to the grandiose ideas and all the big plans that we're thinking about implementing, you have to build that foundation and getting started. And you see so many people that stumble at that level. Let's talk a little bit about that. Something as simple as business cards and emails can really make or break you right out of the starting gate.
And continue to break you all the way through. Not a week goes by, I probably don't get an email from some consultant, and it's at AOL.com. Or I'm at an event 2 weeks ago, and I get a card handed to me that I could tell was bought at Staples and printed on a home printer. It's got the perforated little edges around it,
Yes.
They skip those things because they are what we call the must-have mundane. Sorry. Here's the question, and this is the best way I found to position it. Take whatever you do now. Imagine you're listening. You're what we would call a knowledge worker. You're not a laborer. You get paid for your mental prowess. You do things mentally. That's a service you provide. And ask yourself, if everybody else around me today quit tomorrow, how would I still do the business? And so people say, well, I've never come up with pricing because that's done by another part of the company. I never made my own business card because they handed me a box when I was hired. Contracts, legal handles, all that. So if they've never been a true entrepreneur, those are things that they just kind of look over and they assume any email. We still get, believe it or not, the physical, the digital, the analog message machines. You call a number and it says beep.
Yes.
Home phone numbers, all that stuff. But those are the foundations. And you can't go straight to sales and marketing and all kinds of advanced stuff and say, this is going to work if the foundation doesn't support heavy profits. And it's that image and impression that they create that really damages the ability for you to be seen as reputable and as an authority, as an expert, which you have to be if clients are going to hire you.
Well, and you show, and it's like, okay, how do I get an email other than AOL and Yahoo and Gmail and that type of thing? And to be honest, I'll get emails from people, and I will sort of put them mentally in a separate category if they're coming from one of the generic, email services out there rather than a website. And you talk about it's really, really inexpensive to set up your own website that has email attached to it, so the email is going basically to your business name.
I mean, that's the thing. I think the reason you and I both look at somebody like that is because we know how easy it is to do it. So surely they must not be taking this business very seriously. I have my problems are very serious, and I'm going to pay somebody to fix them. They need to be just as serious as I am. And so when you see something that's so easy, by going to a domain site, wherever you go to buy a domain, acmeconsulting.com, those services, GoDaddy.com is probably the most common one out there, but there's dozens of others. When you get that domain for as little as $5 to $10 a year, you can get an email address that goes along with it. So it becomes j@acmeconsulting.com. I can forward it to my Gmail. I can do it on AOL and use it through Outlook and anything else. But it's that, and again, the domain the same. We'll find people that have a domain that's, acmeconsulting.net because .com was taken. And then it just shows me you're not really serious about this. Little things that they dismiss as unimportant make a huge negative impression on your prospects.
Well, I'm going to start, and I'm not going to get my own separate phone line. I'm going to use the family phone line, maybe not knowing that the family phone line is in your wife's name. So when you're calling out on caller ID, it's coming up, Betty Smith is calling, and right away it's like, okay, what is this? And then when you find out who's calling, it's like, well, that's not real professional. He's calling from his wife's kitchen.
Again, I have a small business owner, and I'm willing to put in thousands of dollars to somebody to fix my problem, and they're not serious. How do I not take somebody serious or take them seriously when they're calling me from, exactly, their home phone, or I hear dogs and kids playing in the background? It's not hard to do. They dismiss it as unimportant, and for $3 a month, $5 a month, some sites free, you could have an 800 or an 888 number that doesn't cost you hardly anything, but creates the right impression.
Building that right foundation, the proper foundation, is all covered extensively in the book, The Profitable Consultant, Starting, Growing, and Selling Your Expertise. Jay Niblick, our guest on This Week in America. A couple minutes left in the program, and we'll have Jay back. Much more to talk about it. You get to the next level, which is sort of like, okay, pricing. How do I go about pricing? And you really have done an excellent job of breaking down how to go about doing pricing, which obviously if you underprice yourself, it's not going to be all that successful.
Well, that's the biggest mistake. I mean, if we were to create a hierarchy, which I do in the book, The Profitable Consultant, there's a list of the top mistakes people make in pricing. And number one is underpricing. They say, well, let me get a base. Money is tough, cash is king. I want to get started. Let me get some bases in. I'll start really low. What really low does is undermine the value. And so when you say, I'll give it to you at a Walmart price, Walmart's value is being able to use their size to get a really good price for me. But I'm not going there to buy the world's most important equipment. I don't want to go to a hospital that has the lowest prices. I don't want an attorney who charges the lowest prices. So don't put yourself in the low price leader trap, which is the most common problem. Well, and it doesn't work.
And I find myself doing that a lot where I will give somebody a quote on something and they say, oh, is that all? And at that point, you can't raise the price. You're stuck with it. I guess if you start high, you can come down. If you start low, that's your final offer.
And a lot of it is because they don't know what's out there. They don't do their homework and figure out what's my market. What are other competitors charging? And our teaching is be in the top 15, 10%. nothing below 20%. But you have to do that homework. Go find other consultants, find out what they're charging. And they don't do that. They just say, look, this is my value. It's a good hourly rate, which is the worst kind of fees to charge because, again, it undermines the value you deliver and places your importance on the labor that you put in. I worked 8 hours. I'm charging you for 8. It doesn't matter what I ended up delivering. It's not the real value you got. It's my effort, which doesn't mean much to me if I'm paying you.
Jay Niblick, our guest on This Week in America. The book is The Profitable Consultant. It's available all across the country, of course, at Jay's website, which is theprofitableconsultant.com. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and get more information. As mentioned, rapidly running out of time. We'll have Jay back for more programs. But I want to talk about a chapter you've got in there because a lot of people, all of a sudden, they're like, yeah, I really want to do that, but I've never really been involved in sales before. How do I go about starting this? And you've got a chapter called Why Selling Sucks. And you take us by the hand and you walk through that process. And suddenly it's like, yeah, I can do that. How big a problem is that for people to actually market themselves?
We did a poll of about 6,000 consultants. 98% said the sales aspect is their most difficult piece to the entire practice. So, 99% said they wish they could get more business. 98% said they don't appreciate or like the way they're trying to sell, or they don't feel it's working. So, it's a huge problem. And the problem is they take best practices from other sales professions, and it's the wrong profession. I've been a professional salesperson in Fortune 100 companies much of my life. But you're not, as a consultant, selling some other product. The real difficult short story is it's one of the only jobs in the world where you are both the seller and that which is being sold. So it takes special techniques that don't have you coming across as a salesperson, where that might be okay if I'm selling a product or a car or real estate. But when it's me, anything I do that makes me look more like a salesperson undermines their confidence in me as the authority, because you would never want to go to the physician who sent you a flyer that said, hey, 10% off your next angiogram,
Well, yeah, and you make a great analogy, and we'll go into it in a future program, but in going to the doctor's office at every step all the way through there and why it's done and how you can relate that to what you're attempting to do as a consultant. And one final thought before we leave here on the marketing and the advertising. You talk about the difference between push marketing and pull marketing. And it really sort of jumps out at you, yeah, that's the way we need to approach this when we're selling ourselves.
Yeah, it's education-based marketing technically versus sales-based marketing. There's only two kinds. Donnie Deutsch, Seth Godin, they all say interruption-based marketing, sales-based marketing. It's dead. You have to educate as the consultant. It's what we just talked about in sales applied to marketing. It's a process of marketing that positions you as the authority, still gets you in front of people, but doesn't push them away. Instead, you're enticing them to reach out to you by strictly educating and positioning yourself. Not a flyer that says, hey, here at Acme Consulting, we can help you solve this problem. No, it's education that says, here's the problem, here's what we see companies doing to fix it. And that's it.
As we started the program, we talked about everyone is different. You have to take what you do, how you're going to approach this, your unique capabilities, and pitch that. In closing, you do a lot in the book, The Profitable Consultant, on communication, and you don't deal with everybody the same way, and that's really a key to being successful, is deal with everybody differently. You have to figure out the best way to actually communicate with this particular client.
Yeah, the book actually goes from the mundane must-haves up to moderately advanced topics, and by the time you're at the end of the book, there's some really advanced topics. This arrives near the end, but it's crucial. People buy for their reasons, not yours. And some of the weakest results we see is somebody who has the same approach that says this coaching program or this solution is going to help you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And it's a pat response, the features, the functions, the benefits, and they do what we used to call show up and throw up. I corner somebody and I say, here's what I do. We do leadership development. It's 30 years. And they fail to appreciate, well, but it's the person you need to entice to come to you and tell you what their problems are, how they want those problems fixed, and communicate with them in the way they want to be, not the way you want to be.
As I mentioned in the beginning, easy to apply advice. That's the nice thing. It walks you all the way through the process. The Profitable Consultant is the book, Starting, Growing, and Selling Your Expertise. The website is theprofitableconsultant.com. Jay Niblick has been our guest on the program, and we will have Jay back on future programs. You can also go to our website if you can't remember all of that and get the information and link on to get information on Jay and the book, The Profitable Consultant. Jay, fascinating discussion. Looking forward to having you back. Thank you for joining us.
Rick, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're listening to This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network.